When a mother opened the bedroom door of her son's home in Henderson, Nevada, she did not find blood splattered across the walls. She did not find signs of a struggle. What she found was a body lying neatly on the bed. But there was something missing, something that would haunt investigators for years to come. The head was gone. Who could have stayed long enough to decapitate a victim in their own home? Why would the head disappear forever while the body was left behind like a message? If you want to follow this case and other mysterious true crime stories, please subscribe to our channel for updates on this investigation and more. On a quiet day in Henderson, Nevada, a discovery was made that would shock the community and baffle law enforcement. Jonathan Willette, a 46-year-old man living what appeared to be an ordinary life, had been found dead in his own bedroom under circumstances that defied explanation. This case would reveal the dark undercurrents that can exist beneath seemingly normal relationships and raise disturbing questions about violence, motive, and the human capacity for brutality. Jonathan Willette was by most accounts an unremarkable man leading an unremarkable life. At 46 years old, he resided in Henderson, Nevada, a city just southeast of Las Vegas, known for its suburban tranquility. Those who knew Jonathan described him as someone without a violent criminal history, someone who maintained a relatively quiet existence. He was not known to be involved in criminal enterprises or dangerous activities. His social circles were not complicated by gang affiliations or underworld connections. However, beneath this facade of normalcy lay complexities that few people fully understood. Jonathan had been involved in a long-term romantic relationship that had become increasingly fraught with conflict. The nature of this relationship, marked by arguments and emotional turbulence, would later emerge as central to understanding the tragedy that befell him. His private life, it would turn out, contained tensions that set the stage for an unthinkable act of violence. The first signs that something was wrong came when Jonathan suddenly stopped answering his phone. Text messages went unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. For those who knew him, this behavior was unusual. Jonathan was typically responsive, maintaining regular contact with family members. The silence was unsettling, a deviation from his normal patterns that could not be easily explained. Concern grew as hours turned into days. Jonathan's mother, troubled by the lack of communication, made the decision to visit his home and check on him personally. It was a choice born of maternal instinct, a sense that something was deeply wrong. She could not have imagined what awaited her behind that door. When she entered Jonathan's bedroom, the scene that confronted her was beyond comprehension. Jonathan's body lay on the bed, positioned in a way that suggested he had been lying down when attacked. But the most horrifying detail was immediately apparent. His head was missing. The body was headless, yet there were no massive blood spatters on the walls, no obvious signs of a prolonged struggle. The bedroom did not look like a battlefield. It looked like a crime scene that had been partially cleaned, managed, controlled. Law enforcement arrived to find a puzzle that defied easy categorization. There were no signs of forced entry into the home, suggesting that Jonathan had known his killer, had perhaps even allowed them inside willingly. The absence of defensive wounds or significant disturbance in the room indicated that the initial attack may have been swift and unexpected. But it was the presence of strong chemical cleaning agents that truly chilled investigators to the bone. Someone had stayed in this room after killing Jonathan Willette. Someone had taken the time to attempt to clean up evidence. Someone had remained calm enough, collected enough to use chemical agents in an effort to remove traces of their presence. This was not a crime of passion that ended in panicked flight. This was something else entirely. The autopsy and forensic examination revealed details that painted a grim picture of Jonathan's final moments. Medical examiners determined that he had been attacked while on his bed, likely while lying down or in a vulnerable position. The cause of death was determined to be homicide, with Jonathan being killed before the decapitation occurred. The removal of the head happened post-mortem, carried out with what forensic experts believed to be a sharp, heavy implement capable of cutting through bone and tissue. This detail raised the most disturbing questions of the entire investigation. Why decapitate someone after they are already dead? Decapitation serves no practical purpose once the victim has been killed by other means. The act itself requires significant physical effort, time, and a level of psychological detachment that speaks to something beyond ordinary homicide. Was this an act of personal hatred? Was it intended as punishment? Did it represent an extreme psychological disturbance? Or was it an attempt to prevent identification of the victim? Investigators also faced the troubling reality that the head had been removed from the scene entirely. Unlike the body which remained on the bed, the head had been taken away. This suggested premeditation in the disposal of evidence, a calculated decision about what to remove and what to leave behind. As the investigation progressed, attention turned to those closest to Jonathan Willette. In murder cases, particularly those involving such personal violence, the perpetrator is often someone known to the victim, someone with intimate access to their life and home. The focus quickly centered on Devon Jade Michaels, a woman who had been romantically involved with Jonathan and who was the mother of his children. The relationship between Jonathan and Michaels had been tumultuous. Those familiar with the couple described a dynamic marked by arguments, periods of separation and reconciliation, and an underlying tension that never fully resolved. There were reports of verbal conflicts, of controlling behaviors, of a love-hate dynamic that oscillated between intimacy and hostility. This was not a relationship characterized by stability or peace. When investigators interviewed Michaels, they noted inconsistencies in her statements. Her account of her whereabouts and activities during the relevant time period raised red flags. She appeared evasive when questioned about certain details, reluctant to provide clear answers to straightforward questions. Perhaps most significantly, items belonging to Jonathan were discovered in Michael's possession items that she could not adequately explain. Under increasing pressure from investigators, Michaels made partial admissions that would prove crucial to the case. She acknowledged that she had struck Jonathan while he was lying on his bed. According to her statement, she claimed she had only intended to injure him, not to kill him. However, this admission raised as many questions as it answered. If Michaels had struck Jonathan with the intent only to injure, what explained his death? What explained the decapitation? Most troublingly, what explained the disappearance of his head? When pressed on these points, Michaels could not or would not provide explanations. She did not account for how a simple assault escalated to murder and then to the grotesque act of post-mortem decapitation. She did not explain what happened to the missing head or where it might be found. The most haunting detail of this case remains the fate of Jonathan Willette's head. Despite extensive searches of the surrounding area, garbage dumps and potential disposal sites, the head has never been recovered. Investigators believe it may have been placed in a trash receptacle and subsequently transported to a landfill, where it could have been buried under tons of refuse, making recovery effectively impossible. Alternatively, it may have been destroyed entirely through other means. The disappearance of the head serves no obvious practical purpose from the perspective of avoiding detection. Jonathan's body was left at the scene. His identity was never in question. So why remove the head? This question has led to various theories among criminal psychologists and investigators. Some experts suggest that decapitation and removal of the head can be an act of dehumanization, an attempt to reduce the victim from a person to an object. It can represent an extreme form of rage or contempt, a symbolic destruction of the individual's identity. In some cases, such mutilation is associated with a desire to exert ultimate control over the victim, to quite literally separate them from themselves. Others have noted that in relationships characterized by intense conflict and feelings of betrayal, perpetrators sometimes engage in post-mortem violence as a form of continued punishment. The decapitation could represent an attempt to degrade the victim even in death, to ensure that even their remains do not rest in peace. There is also the possibility of psychological disturbance. The ability to decapitate a human being, particularly someone with whom one has shared intimate moments, and children, requires a profound disconnection from normal empathic responses. It suggests either extreme emotional disturbance, a complete dissociative state, or a level of rage that overwhelms all inhibitions. The legal proceedings that followed Jonathan Willette's death were marked by complexity and shifting positions. Devin Jade Michaels was charged with murder in connection with his death. Initially, she entered a guilty plea, acknowledging her role in the events that led to Jonathan's death. However, she later attempted to withdraw this plea, claiming that her initial admission had not been made with full understanding of the consequences or under appropriate circumstances. This reversal placed the case in a more complicated procedural position. The prosecution maintained that the evidence against Michaels was substantial, including her own admissions, the presence of Jonathan's belongings in her possession, and forensic evidence from the scene. Defense attorneys argued for consideration of mitigating circumstances, though the specific arguments presented have varied over the course of the proceedings. As of the time of this writing, the case may still be working its way through the legal system, with final adjudication pending. It is important to note that under the American legal system, all individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Until a final verdict is reached and all appeals are exhausted, the legal determination of guilt or innocence remains the province of the courts. The impact on Jonathan Willette's family has been profound and lasting. His mother, who made the terrible discovery of her son's body, has had to live with that traumatic image. His children have lost their father under the most horrific circumstances imaginable. The family has also been denied the closure that might come from having Jonathan's complete remains for burial. The missing head remains a source of ongoing anguish, a physical reminder that even in death, Jonathan has not been allowed to rest in peace. For the Henderson community, this case served as a stark reminder that violence can occur anywhere, even in quiet suburban neighborhoods, and that the people we think we know may be capable of acts we cannot imagine. The very normalcy of the setting made the brutality of the crime even more shocking. The questions that linger are not easily answered. How does a relationship deteriorate to the point where one person can kill and mutilate another with whom they have shared children and years of their life? What psychological mechanisms must fail for someone to cross the line from conflict to murder to desecration of a corpse? And perhaps most haunting of all, what drove someone to remove Jonathan's head and ensure it would never be found? Jonathan Willette died in his own home, in his own bed, killed by someone who knew him intimately. The perpetrator did not flee in panic, but stayed long enough to decapitate him and dispose of his head in a manner that has kept it hidden to this day. The bedroom that should have been a place of rest and safety became the site of unimaginable violence. If Jonathan's mother had not come to check on him that day, how much longer would this crime have remained undiscovered? How much longer would Jonathan's body have lain in that bedroom, waiting to be found? These are questions without answers. Hypotheticals that underscore the randomness of discovery and the importance of family bonds that prompt people to check on their loved ones when something seems amiss. The Jonathan Willette case reminds us that justice systems exist not only to punish wrongdoing, but to establish truth through evidence and due process. In cases where violence seems incomprehensible, where the brutality exceeds our capacity to understand, we must rely on careful investigation. Forensic science and legal proceedings that respect both the rights of the accused and the memory of the victim. Families torn apart by such crimes deserve answers, deserve to see their loved ones' cases taken seriously and prosecuted fairly. Society has an obligation to ensure that no one suffers violence in silence, and that those who commit acts of extreme brutality are held accountable through legitimate legal channels. This case stands as a testament to the darkness that can exist in human relationships and the importance of recognizing warning signs before conflict escalates beyond the point of no return. If you have thoughts on this case based on the facts presented, please share them in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on this investigation and other mysterious true crime cases, please subscribe to our channel for more in-depth coverage of stories that challenge our understanding of human nature and the pursuit of justice.